welcome to Chapter 14, Part 2 in Lifestyle Management. Now, in this short overview of unintentional and intentional injuries, as you may know, we are exposed to and sometimes experience injuries. So even though we don't plan to be injured, injuries are often preventable and they're even predictable. So let's get started with this, and we're going to begin with unintentional injuries, and then we're going to go into intentional injuries. Unintentional injuries. Why do accidents happen? Well, I'm going to do a quick overview about unintentional injuries and their serious public concerns, our health concerns. In Canada, when we think in terms of unintentional injuries, we consider things like transportation accidents, falls, drownings, fires, burns. Unintentional poisoning and sports are some of the most common examples. I've certainly experienced some of these or know people who have, but there are many non-fatal injuries resulting in disability or physical impairment such as blindness, spinal cord injuries, brain injuries, including concussions, post-concussion syndrome. So the majority of unintentional injuries are not only preventable, but they are predictable. And this has certainly touched my life significantly, as it may have any of you in your lives. I had a friend who dove in our swimming pool when we just finished first year university, so that was 1976. And when he Jeff jumped in, he broke his neck in our pool, hit his head on the bottom. Unintentional. However, it could have been considered predictable in that it wasn't a particularly deep pool. We had dove in it many times. We were aware. But accidents and unintended accidents do happen. This particular time he landed on his head, broke his neck. So it was preventable and it was predictable. Many of us have probably had other types of examples, not unlike that of Jeff. And of course, that affected his life. He lived in a wheelchair for his entire life. He died 6 years ago, 2017. So when we look at unintentional injuries, they can be severe, as like Jeff. I've twisted my ankles. I've broken my ankles. I've had knee surgery in 2005. These are unintentional. They're sports related, but they have an impact in your life. And there is a certain degree of, that is a risk with these activities. So once we know what are some of the factors that can affect unintentional injuries, we may be able to improve our predictiveness about what and how much risk we can manage and be safe. The first factor of influence that we can review is one's age. Age can play a big role regarding injuries. The young and seniors are at the greatest risk. Injuries are the leading cause of death for Canadians between the ages of 1 and 44. 70% of injury-related deaths of our children and youth are due to unintentional injuries. For seniors, the most significant and most common injury are falls. There's a lot of research that are going into and looking at how to help seniors prevent falls. Anything from including what types of shoes should they be wearing, what kind of walkers that might prevent falls and prevention in homes, building in additional supports, rails, floors, elevators, wider doors into homes, the rubber on the bottom of canes and walkers, what material should they be and how can we make them safer? All right, age is a factor. So what else? What about stress? Should we be stressed out or sleep deprived? You pose a greater risk to yourself and others. That's Just makes sense. Stress and fatigue does not support doing our best. You may get preoccupied in your mind, which is why you might, as you're going downstairs, then bang, you've taken the extra 1 or 2 steps and find yourself lying on the floor. If you're out skiing or snowboarding and you've been sleep deprived and not, maybe you're really stressed out, you got a lot of things on your mind, you're tired, you might not react as quickly as you think. And when you try to make that turn or stop, you find yourself entering the trees at a breakneck speed. Okay, next. We can also consider thrill-seeking as a factor for unintentional injuries. An explanation for unintentional injuries and thrill-seeking would include parachuting, base jumping, examples of risky and high attentive activity. Now, no doubt some of you are more interested in it than others might be. However, along that line about the thrill-seeking, some people at least may have lower than normal levels of brain chemical that regulate excitement, which is why they may increase or ramp up the thrill-seeking in order to get to this same response that you and I might experience with something a little less spectacular. In some cases, taking risks can enhance personal well-being. So it's a balance between how much risk do we take and therefore how many precautions do we take. It's one thing to go skiing or snowboarding or participate in a fast-moving activity, but to not wear appropriate preventative equipment or take the appropriate safety precautions, helmets, weather equipment, this can at least minimize some of the risk and protect us from more serious injury. Okay, let's move away from the unintended and move towards intentional injuries. This is one. This one is different and unlike unintentional injuries. Intentional injuries is like living in a dangerous world. The World Health Organization describes intentional injuries as including interpersonal violence that includes homicide, sexual assault, neglect, abandonment, suicide, and war. Some people or groups of people are more vulnerable to intentional injuries than others, and living in an unsafe environment can raise these risks. Many of us might not find ourselves in some of those areas where some of the intentional risks for injuries may occur. However, there are, and we may even know people who have been affected by unintentional or by intentional injuries. Suicide is probably one of the more significant. Suicide and other forms of self-harm are the leading cause of all intentional injuries and deaths. Now we're going to review some categories of intentional injuries. This course and chapter will only be highlighting key trends, not exploring the correlational explanations of these trends. We're going to begin with violence in Canada. In Canada, police reported crime rate, the crime rate severity index, have both been decreasing since the 90s, with a slight uptick more recently. You can look in your textbook at figure 14.4 where you'll notice the green line, that's the one at the bottom, which represents violent crime, might be lower than you thought it was. It might be part of what we get a lot of attention is in the news media and social media that may make it appear like violent crime is much more frequent and much more higher than in fact is. Males, unfortunately, still account for the majority of criminal offenses. However, its female offenses have been increasing. Please also note that police-reported crime does not include non-reported crime, which can in some categories be much larger than reported crime. Many people just don't report it. The incidence of crime, the statistics found in Stats Canada or collected by sociologists, are those statistics that can be recorded and documented only. So when it comes to crime, in particular, whether it be family violence, sexual assault, or violent crimes generally, if they're not reported, they're not counted. Okay, now let's begin with family violence. Police reported violence against family members has declined by about 17% from about the 2018-ish. However, it's important to remember that family violence is often, again, not reported. And this is very important when it comes to crimes. In particular, crimes generally, but family violence and sexual assault in particular, are often not reported. So when we look at stats, they are representative, and I'm emphasizing this, they are only representative based on those that have been reported crimes to police. The incidence of those crimes occur higher depending upon the crime. Common physical assault accounted for the greatest proportion of family violence. That included pushing, slapping, or punching. With major assault involving, with major assault which involves use of a weapon that involves bodily harm, and being the next most reported offense. The majority of the victims, as you might expect, are young girls and women. Closer to us at this point is crimes on campus. Now, while most colleges and university campuses provide a safe environment for living and studying, there are reports of increasing crime rates. Property crimes such as burglary and theft, bullying is certainly one on the rise. Now, due to concerns about safety on campus, more schools are taking tougher stands on student behavior and establishing codes of conduct, barring the use of alcohol and drugs or addressing sexual harassment, racism, homophobic issues, and some have been instituting policies regarding suspensions or expulsions of students who violate these codes. Now, you'll find that at Georgian College, we have these codes for student conduct and for the protection of people, and there are supports in place to help. Now, many campuses have also set up public safety initiatives and sexual assault services, providing counseling, crisis intervention, education programs. For the most students, crime is committed by students themselves. Bystander intervention training. Now, this is an attempt by some colleges and universities to offer workshops focused on preventing violence and sexual assault. This training may also educate about alcohol and drug use, respect for the differences in sexual orientation, and other higher risk issues. All of this is aimed at helping students to be active on their campus, provide skills in de-escalation strategies and other supports. Another form of intentional danger is what's known as hate crime. In recent years, we've seen a slight reduction in violent crimes motivated by hatred of particular person's race, religion, or sexual orientation. Now, hate crimes are related to race and ethnicity, are still a great concern. Most common types of hate crime violations include mischief or vandalism, assault, uttering threats, hate propaganda, and physical force using weapons such as knives and pellet guns is becoming, unfortunately, more common at some campuses. Many administrators at Canadian colleges and universities are denouncing hate crimes and doing more to educate faculty, staff, and students about this issue. Okay, it's at this point I want to point out that the next area that we're coming to, I want you to review this on your own. This is an asynchronous class and a video-based course. And because of the way I do my videos, I put images in a lot of the videos. I'm not present with you face to face to provide any support. This may not be the best place to do this in an online environment with images that can be acting as a trigger for those who may have had some bad experiences, and I don't want this course to be that trigger. I'm aware of the topic is very difficult for those who struggle with this topic, and to please visit Student Services, take advantage of the very good and caring support that are provided here. For this content, you still will review this for your own comfort in your own place where you can feel comfortable, and then deal with it on your own pace. There will still be some questions on the test, but it'll be a reduced number. I am aware how important this topic is, and I encourage you to increase your own awareness and supportiveness to one another in regards to sexual violence and violence. So that will be the end of part 2. I hope you enjoyed this. Carry on and be good to one another, please. Have a good day, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye now.